It's Pat here from Fenestration Review Magazine. I'm here with Todd Hassman from Evergreen Energy out in BC. Where are you located, Todd?
I'm located in Langley.
You're in Langley, BC. Okay, great. And Todd has been doing a lot of work with window and door suppliers out there, especially around the new NAS requirements that are coming in. And I wanted to ask Todd today about some of his experiences out there. Todd, what are you seeing right now as the prime challenges for the BC manufacturers in complying with NAFs and the contractors, I guess, in getting their stuff compliant?
It's definitely a real learning curve for these guys. When the program first started off, we were supposed to have deadlines when they were going to introduce it back in 2013 with delays. We had people started testing. Some companies started testing very early, way back as far as 2008, 2009. Most of them also made windows, so they're familiar with what was coming. The pre-hangers, the guys that assembled the door systems had no idea. A lot of the sill manufacturers as well were trying to come out with new product, new sills that would pass. Because we did some preliminary stuff back in 2010 and we tested the sills that were on the market then, and we knew they weren't going to make it for the requirements for air, water, and wind. So they designed, redesigned, retooled, and with the soft entries and the delays, more of the delays, they just stopped testing. So they would just put the testing off, and then we had the next entry that was supposed to be taking effect, and that got delayed. So when they realized finally there was going to be no more delays, that the date in December was going to be the date, which was December of 2013, everybody was in a scramble to test, and we were testing right over the Christmas holidays, right up to New Year, trying to get reports and get people to be able to label doors and hang doors for NAFs. I was involved in some of the testing and in the labs working with the door people that I help represent on the door side of things. What we found is when it did take effect, some pre-hang customers pre-hangers had a knock on the door from the local inspectors saying, if you don't have a label on your door, don't bother shipping it to site, we're going to reject it. Wow. So we had a couple dozen pre-hangers in BC, a lot on Vancouver Island, just realized that they couldn't build a door. They didn't have a label, so they pretty much shut down. And it wasn't just Vancouver Island, it was throughout the whole province. And we seen door slabs just really diminish after that in December, January, and February. By February, a lot of the testing has come through. A lot of people were getting into the programs, into a certification program, or partnering up with other pre-hangers and forming groups to do testing, because testing is expensive. And they finally had reports and they could put labels and temporary labels on doors. Now, we were supposed to kind of see a soft entry, but we didn't get that. You know, some inspectors and some municipalities did go soft. They did extend it to like February, March. Have your stuff, we'll be looking for labels in March, giving them some time. Some other inspectors didn't do that. So it was a hit and miss all over the whole province. Wow. You didn't know what to expect. Now with NAFs and the liability that comes with NAFs and labeling, we even have some customers that to this date don't even want to build those units. They'll have another company that is able to label, build the units for them, buy them labeled, and then sell them to the job site or to the contractor developer.
And I think a lot of those delays were put in place because of industry pressure in a lot of cases. It was supposed to be a benefit to people to give them more time to get their ducks in a row, but I guess that didn't work out that way.
We had too many people with their heads in the sand thinking that NAS was going to go away.
Right.
So every time they heard of a delay, they're thinking, yeah, it's going to get kicked. It's going to get kicked. So why am I going to spend money and do anything? Yeah. And I still have a few customers who are thinking that NAS is going to get kicked. And it's not going away. It's here to stay. It's good for the consumer. It's good for the industry. And I think it's good for the whole business as a whole.
Yeah, it just brings the quality level up and satisfies a lot of things that consumers are looking for. How is it that BC, I think specifically, has seemed to have come so far on the enforcement side? I mean, this is what you don't see in a lot of other jurisdictions. I mean, there's been AAMA requirements for air water ingress on doors for forever across all the jurisdictions in Canada, really, and yet now this somehow has become something that they want to enforce in BC, and that has a lot of interest behind it at the enforcement level? Do you have any insight as to why that's happened? Or
I have an opinion as to how that came about.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that started with the leaky condos.
Right.
We had a lot of issues with leaky condos way back. We had a new home warranty program in place back then that went bankrupt. There's another one in place. And in my opinion, I do believe it's coming from the insurance companies, the underwriters. When you're doing multifamily or big projects, they have building consultants on staff now. These guys are, if you want the insurance, are looking to the consultants that are going to oversee the whole project. They have requirements for testing for windows and doors that may meet higher requirements than what NAS or what's in the building code for that area. And I think some, especially on the door hangers in BC, they have no idea about this. It's very unfamiliar because that door never needed testing before, unlike the window. So if you were to ask window people how windows evolved, how that testing affected them, how they had to pull product out, put product in that would pass the test, because when they were testing these things on site, they weren't making it. And I think we're going to probably see the same thing on doors. And I think there may be some cases going on already where these places have got to that finishing state and they've done the on-site testing and they're having issues with these doors not passing at the requirements that they're looking for. Again, it's a transition period. I hope that everybody's trying to work through that transition period. But ultimately, the pre-handlers are going to step up quality. They're going to need to improve quality. They should be doing testing, in my opinion, on the products that they're building going out to these sites, so that when the consultants come in and do an on-site test, it's going to pass and not fail. If it does fail, you could be looking at having to test another unit. And plus, you got to fix those units and bring those 2 units up to pass. And for every 100 windows I hear, 2 windows will be tested, plus the 1 door is going to be tested. And that's part of the package that's being presented to the developer or to the contractor who's doing the multifamily project.
Okay.
So that's where the checks and balances are coming. And I think we're going to probably see more enforcement and people getting caught and called out on that if they're trying to build a door. And a lot of these guys have problems with the contractor, because the contractor wants the least expensive door sometimes if it's a spec project.
Right.
They don't want a whole lot of money, and they question why the door costs more, and they don't realize that there's more money in the door, more money in the sill, more money in the weather stripping that's on that unit. Multi-lock, in some cases you're going to need multi-lock hardware versus a deadbolt passage. So there's a lot of more costs that come with NAFs. And it depends where you're going and what requirements you need for air, water, and wind in certain areas too. So when you look at it from that point of view, I would like to see these pre-hangers doing their very best foot forward, using the right products, making sure they're doing quality control checks, so when they get out there, get installed, and they do the on-site test. If that door is randomly pulled, it should hopefully pass at what the building consultants are looking for in terms of ratings.
Good. Different numbers I've heard, anywhere between 150 and 180 different jurisdictions in BC, or as far as municipalities. Your job is to go out there and tell guys how to get their products approved in all of, I guess, all of these different places. How are you meeting that challenge? How do you do you have to like make contact with the building officials directly to find out what they want, or how is that working?
Well, there's been educational processes out there by different other groups and consulting firms to help consult the inspectors as to what to look for. A lot of it is coming from the building inspectors themselves in those municipalities. Again, it's more about shedding liability issues. They're looking for temporary labels they can pick up, put into their books, saying they've inspected, look for the labels to make sure it's going to pass. We are seeing.
Can you tell them this label will get you there?
You can't really tell them anything. In NAFs, there's an open terrain and a rough terrain, and elevation, and these inspectors are looking at that, and they're playing the worst case scenario in a lot of cases. They're going everything as an open terrain and not a rough terrain or limited water. They're looking at elevations. If it's up on a hill or a slope, instead of a 10-meter building, it might become a 20-meter building. Well, those all affect the bottom numbers for air, water, and wind. For example, if you're in an area in Maple Ridge where you require a 220 PA for water, under rough. If you go to open, it's a 290 PA. If you increase the elevation by 10 meters, it's all of a sudden a 330. So you get a wide range, and you should try and figure out where they're going to be. And you should do that when you're quoting the project, so you know how to build the door unit, so you're not going to have the issues of the door unit being rejected at the time of the inspection or after the fact and having to replace or address those issues or putting in the proper product. That also affects pricing and quoting, because if you're quoting a door for a 220, it's at a much lower price than if you need to build a door for a 330 or a 400. Or very, very different.
Right. Yeah.
And a lot of it comes down to the hardware, single point with a deadbolt passage versus multi-lock.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, that's great. Thanks.